If they confirm me as the Speaker of the nation, then I speak not for myself, but for all of Germany.
Berlin, 1933. A cold night. A government building is burning, and the flames are doing more than eating wood and paper. They're eating rules. Inside the smoke and shouting, one political movement sees the moment it's been waiting for. Not because the fire itself matters, but because fear does. Within weeks, Germany will look familiar on the outside. Streets, shops, schools, newspapers still printing. But on the inside, something has shifted. Rights that took decades to build start disappearing in days. And the strangest part is this: it doesn't happen with one dramatic takeover. It happens in steps, legal steps, signed, stamped, and applauded. And to understand how a failed artist and fringe agitator turned a wounded democracy into a dictatorship, we have to go back to the deal that left an entire nation feeling humiliated and ready to blame someone. The peace that didn't feel like peace. In 1918, the First World War ends, but Germany doesn't feel like it lost the way people expect a loser to feel. The fighting never reached much of Germany's heartland. Many soldiers come home believing they were still holding the line, still capable. Then the surrender arrives like a slap, fast, confusing, and public. A year later, German leaders are called to Versailles, not to bargain, but to receive terms. The treaty strips territory, limits the military, and adds a war guilt clause that reads like a permanent label. This was your fault. On top of that, reparations are demanded, huge payments that squeeze the economy and stain politics. For ordinary Germans, Versailles becomes more than paper. It becomes a story people tell at dinner tables, a story that says, we were betrayed, we were cheated, we were cornered. That story doesn't need to be fully accurate to be powerful. It only needs to feel true. And in that wounded atmosphere, Germany tries to build something new, the Weimar Republic, a democratic system with elections, parties, debate, and freedoms. On paper, it's modern. In reality, it's fragile, because democracy is hardest to defend when people associate it with humiliation. But humiliation alone doesn't topple a country. The real accelerator is money, when it stops making sense. And that's where the next disaster begins. Hyperinflation, when money turns into paper. In the early 1920s, Germany's economy starts breaking in a way that feels unreal. Prices rise, then sprint. Savings vanish. Paychecks become jokes. People are paid in stacks of notes that can't buy basic food by the time they walk home. A middle-class family that did everything right, worked, saved, planned, watches their life evaporate. And when that happens, trust evaporates too. Trust in banks, trust in leaders, trust in the idea that the system is fair. The Weimar government looks weak, not only because it struggles, but because it argues while people suffer. Coalition politics means constant deals and constant collapse. One cabinet falls, another forms, and the average person feels like nothing changes except the speeches. Extremist groups understand something important. When life becomes unstable, people don't just want solutions, they want certainty. They want someone to say clearly who is to blame and what will happen next. This is the moment fringe movements start sounding serious, not because their ideas get better, but because their confidence feels comforting. And among those movements is a small, angry party that knows how to stage a room, work a crowd, and turn frustration into a target. And the man at the center of it all is not a respected general or a famous scholar. He's a nobody with a loud voice who's about to learn how to make millions listen.
Adolf Hitler doesn't rise because he is born into power. He rises because he becomes useful to people who already have power, and because he learns how to sell a simple story to a population that feels betrayed. He tries to be an artist and fails. He drifts. He absorbs politics like a sponge, especially the kind that turns complex problems into easy enemies. After the war, he joins a small political group and quickly becomes its main speaker. He discovers that words can move people the way money can't. His speeches are not careful. They are emotional. He doesn't offer a spreadsheet. He offers a villain. The message is repeated until it feels like common sense. Germany was stabbed in the back. Germany is being robbed. Germany is surrounded by enemies. Germany needs to stand up again. At the same time, the movement builds an identity. Symbols, uniforms, marching, flags, songs. It feels organized. It feels strong. And in a time when the future feels uncertain, strength is attractive. But speeches alone don't take over a country. Hitler's party needs muscle. It needs intimidation. It needs street presence, something people can see and feel. So the party builds it. And the next step is where politics stops being only words. The street army, SA, fear, and order. As the Nazi movement grows, it creates paramilitary groups, most famously the SA, later followed by the SS. These aren't just supporters handing out flyers, they are men in uniforms who show up to rallies, disrupt opponents, and make it physically risky to resist. Violence doesn't have to be everywhere to work. It only has to be unpredictable. If a shopkeeper thinks politics might bring trouble to his door, he keeps his head down. If a newspaper editor thinks a visit could happen at night, he softens his language. If a teacher worries that the wrong opinion could cost a job, lessons become cautious. This is how fear spreads without a formal announcement. Meanwhile, the Nazi Party uses modern propaganda with discipline and repetition. Posters, slogans, staged events, coordinated messaging. They don't just talk about politics, they frame politics as a battle for survival. And when politics feels like survival, people accept things they would normally reject. Still, Germany in the mid-1920s doesn't hand Hitler the keys. There are years where the Nazis fade into the background. Then, in 1929, the world crashes. The Great Depression hits, and it hits Germany like a fist. Loans vanish. Businesses collapse. Unemployment explodes. Once again, ordinary life becomes unstable. And once again, extremist answers become tempting, because at least they sound decisive. But Hitler's real breakthrough doesn't come from winning an argument. It comes from winning an appointment. And that leads us straight into the back rooms where conservative leaders think they can use him. The deal: how Hitler becomes chancellor. By the early 1930s, the Nazi Party becomes too big to ignore. In elections, it wins huge numbers of seats, not because most Germans are already committed Nazis, but because millions are desperate, angry, or simply done with unstable government. But Hitler still doesn't take power by winning a clean, direct majority and then politely governing. Instead, he is pulled into office through political calculation. Germany's elites, traditional conservatives, business leaders, old officials, fear the left and fear chaos. They believe they can put Hitler in a high position, benefit from his popularity, and then control him with responsible ministers around him. It's a classic mistake. They think he is a tool. He thinks they are a ladder. On January 30th, 1933, Hitler is appointed chancellor. Some people panic, others shrug. Many assume this will be like every other government, loud promises, then compromise. But Hitler moves faster than they expect. Within weeks, a crisis becomes an opportunity. A dramatic event shakes the nation, and the Nazi message is ready. This is what happens when we are soft. This is why we need emergency powers. And now we arrive at the moment where democracy can be dismantled using its own paperwork.
The legal trap, emergency powers, and the Enabling Act. After the Reichstag fire, the government pushes emergency decrees that suspend key civil liberties. The language sounds temporary. It sounds practical. It sounds like protection. And many ordinary people accept it because it is framed as safety. Freedom of speech, privacy, the right to organize, these feel abstract compared to immediate fear. When people are frightened, they often trade rights for promises. Then comes the Enabling Act in March 1933, a turning point. With intimidation in the streets and pressure inside the political system, the law passes and gives Hitler's government the power to make laws without parliament. A democracy has just voted to weaken itself. From this point, opposition becomes harder, then dangerous, then almost impossible. Parties are banned or forced to dissolve. Trade unions are crushed and replaced with state-controlled organizations. Independent newspapers are bullied, bought, or shut down. And it's not presented as tyranny. It's presented as national renewal. Flags go up, parades roll, jobs programs are announced. The message is, Germany is standing again. But while the public sees stability returning, the inside of the state is being rewired. Police power expands, courts bend, a new normal forms. And here's the part that often gets missed. Many people don't wake up one day and decide to support dictatorship. They simply adjust to the new rules because resisting feels costly and because daily life still needs to be lived. But even as Hitler tightens control, he still faces a threat from within his own movement, the very street forces that helped him rise. And what happens next shows how dictators keep power, by removing rivals even if they once served the cause. Crushing rivals, turning a movement into a machine. The Nazi coalition is not one happy family. The SA is massive and restless. Some SA leaders want a second revolution that would threaten the old elites Hitler is now partnering with. The army distrusts the SA. Conservative supporters want stability, not chaos in uniforms. Hitler chooses the option that secures his position. He sides with the army and the state, and he allows a brutal purge of internal rivals. The message is clear. Loyalty is not enough. Power must be centralized. No competing forces are allowed. After President Hindenburg dies in 1934, Hitler merges the roles of chancellor and president and becomes Führer. From that moment, the system is built around one man. Yet the most chilling part isn't only what happens at the top, it's what happens at the bottom, among ordinary people. Because the regime doesn't need every citizen to be a fanatic. It only needs enough supporters to create momentum and enough silence to remove obstacles. So how did ordinary Germans accept it? Not all at once, not with one emotion, but through a slow set of choices: ignore, adapt, rationalize, participate, repeat. And that is the final piece of the rise, because dictatorships don't run on fear alone, they run on permission. And to see that permission forming, we have to look at the small, everyday ways a society stops pushing back. Hitler's rise to power wasn't a single dramatic takeover with tanks in the street on day one. It was a sequence: humiliation after Versailles, economic collapse, political instability, a movement built on spectacle and blame, pressure in the streets, deals among elites, and then the legal transformation of emergency into permanent authority. Many Germans didn't cheer every step. Many disliked the thugs, disliked the shouting, disliked the fear. But they liked the promise of order. They liked the idea that Germany could be respected again. Some benefited. Some stayed quiet. Some told themselves it was temporary. Some told themselves politics wasn't their job. And that's the lesson hidden inside the origin story.
A dictatorship doesn't always arrive like a thunderclap. Sometimes it arrives like paperwork, signed during a crisis, justified as necessary, accepted because people are tired, and reinforced because the cost of resistance keeps rising. In the end, the real story behind Hitler's rise isn't only about one man's ambition. It's about a broken system, a wounded population, and a slow sequence of decisions that made the unthinkable feel normal.